First impressions are often misleading, especially when it comes to books. In some cases, we see ourselves flying through them, eyes hungry for the next sentences, the next paragraphs, using the descriptions of places and buildings and people to zone out and let the movie we form in our minds take over. We devour the books in record time and press our stamp of approval or disapproval on them. And then it's on to the next one. The cycle repeats. Some books we can leave alone, either out of too much love or too much hate. But some books, we have to relive the story, replay the movie. And in those some books, we find that our opinions on them might have changed. What once was loved is now hated. What once was hated is now loved. The confusing is made clear, and the details we ran past in an effort to get on with the story now catch our eyes and throw us into despair at the author's glaring obvious prejudices. Time changes people, changes opinions, and our opinions on books are no different. So, this episode, I'm going to look at 5 books I read, reread, and experienced a change of heart. So, let's start with An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. Now, I didn't think the other Green brother had it in him to write something this neat, but Hank Green did. When I read this book, I was pleasantly surprised because I had put John Green in the Writing Brother box and Hank Green in the Science Brother box and assumed they were happy where they were. If you haven't read An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, it's the first book in what is either a series or a duology. I can't remember. It is the story of April May. Yes, that's her name. A graphic artist who works at a crummy startup and lives with her girlfriend. Though I don't think she's too keen on calling Maya her girlfriend for a while. April is fresh out of college and the world is exactly how it is when you graduate. Crummy because you got a useless major that offered crummy opportunities that were so crummy they weren't worth taking. Sorry? A little self-loathing there. Moving on. April discovers a weird statue that pops up all over the world and invades people's dreams. As the world explodes, May becomes a celebrity. So the book does a fantastic job at exploring the value of making yourself a brand and controlling your self-image, as well as offering speculation on the political discourse that would take place if alien statues appeared out of nowhere and started invading people's dreams, and chose some punk to be their spokesperson. My first impression of An Absolutely Remarkable Thing was surprise and enjoyment, because it's a good book, and, like I said, I didn't know Hank Green had it in him. Upon rereading, my second impression is that, yes, of course Hank Green would write speculative fiction involving aliens and puzzle solving with science, and draw that story around a main character that is flawed and sometimes super unlikable. So, my opinion on this shifted ever so slightly, but it is still a shift. Speaking of the Brothers Green, I have been a fan of John Green's novels for a while, read every one of them, and own a copy of one of my favorites, An Abundance of Catherines, and what is right now my least favorite, The Fault in Our Stars. Let me just say, this book is incredibly well written. It is one of John Green's finest works, and it was a commercial banger. Now, I've read The Fault in Our Stars no less than 5 times. I highlighted quotes that I thought were profound and romantic in my personal copy. Please do not highlight, underline, draw, or make any kind of markings in library-owned books. Thank you. Upon the first couple of readings, I couldn't get over this amazing story of teenage love. And maybe because I was getting older, but the romantic gesture of foregoing life-saving medical treatment for love just seemed not right. It seems kind of wrong. There are YA books that do so well commercially and are so great they spark a whole genre. For example, the Twilight series cursed us with the unholy supernatural teenage romance genre. The Hunger Games gave us dystopian knockoffs that either worked, didn't work, or missed Hunger Games' point and shot itself right into the garbage. I would argue that The Fault in Our Stars started what I call the die for you genre, where a character with an illness, mostly terminal, will risk their lives for their significant other by doing something that will definitely kill them, like stepping into the germ-filled world if you're allergic to germs, or going outside while the sun's out if you cannot be outside while the sun's out, or standing too close to someone when you know that it will kill you. For me, as an adult, I guess, that bothered me. Like, I could not get past that. And, like, there were other things as well, like Hazel looking like, I guess this is dead ex, and the fact that she's never explicitly called his girlfriend by others, but the death by ignoring treatment for a fun foreign romp was the cartoon weight that squashed the coyote. So, the next book on my list is The Handmaid's Tale. Now, I like this book in that it is an incredible piece of literature that delves into some hot political topics by displaying what women's rights in the United States would look like if the government was overthrown by religious extremists. This has spawned protest groups that dress up as handmaids, and the book is used as a model of the great what if. And that's what I saw this book as. The answer to the question, what if? And while I was reading, I was terrified by the treatment of women in this book. And told myself that, Gilead is a terrible, horrible future. But here's the thing. Margaret Atwood, the author of The Handmaid's Tale, said this about the book. She didn't put anything in there that hasn't already happened. Maybe not to the full extent of what you witness with the birth of Gilead, but what happens in The Handmaid's Tale has happened to some degree somewhere in the world, and is happening to some degree somewhere in the world. For me, this book, when taking into account the history, it goes from this is a terrifying future to this is a terrifying reality for so many women. We're gonna move on. Actually, you know what? I'm not completely done because H.P. Lovecraft. Look, I fought with patrons for months over Cal's copy of the new annotated H.P. Lovecraft. It's a beautiful book, it gives helpful notes on the stories, and I am not ashamed of myself for doing it. And if you are one of those patrons with whom I fought over this book with, you know what you did. I like the mythos that Lovecraft created. He made some gnarly, horrifying monsters and wrote these awesome, just haunting classics that were the definition of ooky spooky. But if you've read and or watched Lovecraft Country or any of Lovecraft's works, you know that H.P. was racist. He also hated women, but he was very racist. Like, the way he describes people of color is just it's not good. And unfortunately, this is the tale of many early science fiction writers. I mean, not even Edgar Allan Poe escaped from this. Like, if you read that one story about the dude on the island with the death beetle or moth or whatever, yeah. It's big yikes. But, back to HP. So, initially, when reading these stories, that involved the demonization of people of color, I skipped over the descriptions and depictions, because my attention span when it comes to lengthy descriptions about anything is virtually non-existent. But that became difficult when rereading everything. And it's hard to separate the writer from the writing. So, these are cool stories, these are cool monsters, but it's a big yikes for some of the depictions of people of color. This entry is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. The series is often noted as the flint that sparked people's love of reading. It has a big fandom. It produces merch like crazy. It's got its own theme park, websites, plays, puppet videos on YouTube, and 3 parody musicals. And one particularly infamously bad fanfic that was so awful it had to be taken down from the fan fiction website it was posted on. I am, of course, listeners, talking about Harry Potter. Look, by the time I got around to reading the Harry Potter series, I was heading off to college. So I'm a little late to the game. But I flew through the series, loving the things that weren't in the movies, and also hating those things that weren't in the movies. I took the quizzes on Pottermore. I bought the merch. I love this series. Not as much as some of y'all, but enough to have a great appreciation of the material. However, that infatuation dwindled upon rereading. My biggest gripe is that there are some characters, good guys, who are sketchy. I'm gonna give a couple of the obvious ones. Dumbledore is sketch. He does sketch things. Snape is sketch. Snape is very sketch. You could look up sketch in the dictionary and Snape's face would be taped over the definition. And with the new material that's being added to the Harry Potter universe, it's created a bunch of plot holes that are just not great and sort of undermine, I think, the original Harry Potter series. Harry Potter is a great series, but for me, it does not really live up to the hype. Well, I think I've done enough to warrant a cancellation of this podcast thing. That's it. Thanks for listening to me rant on books for a while, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There are so many great virtual programs and videos from other youth programmers and librarians on this channel, and you should give them a look-see. Anyway, see you next time.